community, I think is something that much of the Western world, at least, really could learn from. It's something that maybe we've lost to an extent. And I think that taking on board that lesson from Tuvalu and its people could be very important, not just within our own communities here, but also in how we perceive the world and the world as our community, and also looking to extend that and say, okay, Tuvalu is part of our community, we should be taking action to protect it. It's our obligation just as much as it might be within Tuvalu the obligation to help out when there's a project going forward. So I think that's a really important message for everyone that's listening. I touched a little bit on it earlier in terms of looking at young people and their sort of role in terms of climate action and adaptation. Do you think that young people from Tuvalu who are still living in it or are part of the diaspora now have a big role to play in terms of climate action?
Yes, they do, actually. They actually do. For young people here in Tuvalu, like what I learned from different youth groups is that they tried really hard to contribute, because resilience means to us everything, you know, not only to be able to prepare and to be well prepared to get whatever, to adapt and to be able to adapt to whatever impacts that hits us. But in a way, it also means that we're not physically preparing for it. We need to prepare in a way of our sense of responsibility and what our obligation is. The question comes into mind is, for us young people, for me as a young person too, is what will my legacy be? If I leave Tuvalu now, or if I leave this earth, would my children know about what Tuvalu is? What are the traditional knowledge they know about? What are the traditional skills they would know? And one of those thread is being a Christian. You know, religion really, really has a big influence in how we do our things here and how we actually practice our culture here in Somalia. And as a young person, we know that our obligation, like in contributing to the climate change, is coming up with initiatives that are our own and we're taking ownership to. And then we're contributing towards the resiliency of our people. So some of the young people here in Tuvalu, there's a one youth organization that is looking after the restoration of corals here in Tuvalu. Because they recently knew about from one of the government projects that 70% of our corals here on the capital of Tuvalu are highly bleached or bleached. So something like that, which means that we have to go further in sea to fish, and then we have to know where are the red zones that we shouldn't be going to fish, and where are the good zones that we should go to fish. So we won't be able to get poisoned by those fish that are in the red zone. So they try to do this, but it's slow, yeah? Our efforts doesn't necessarily mean that our efforts to contribute towards combat of climate change would make a huge difference, to be honest, because the impact of climate change actually has a time of its own, and its time is very fast compared to the adaptation methods that we are trying to do here in Tuvalu. There are also young people who are advocating on national platforms on what they want to do, on advocating or amplifying their voices or their stories of what the challenges that they're facing. And there are also young people who would like to, who are in the spaces, yeah, in these climate spaces. For example, like Tuvalu Climate Action Network is a network that I'm being part of because I know I need to be part of that network to be able to know how to access funding, how to be able to translate the complexity of accessing these funding to our people in our community, and how to be able to advocate on our people's behalf and how to contribute. How can I contribute to my people with what I know and what I can do for them? So we join these spaces, the network spaces, or the NGOs that are working on these areas that they are trying to respond and trying to combat climate change. And there are other young people that travels through the palm, which are the labor mobility, to go overseas to be able to fund their families back at home, to send that money for their family to be able to afford the necessary food that I imported in. Because, as I said, through the frequent events of inundation in our lands, crops are hardly able to grow well here in our country. That leads us to completely rely on imported goods. So these young people, seeing the challenges that we're facing in our community, they choose to go through labor mobility to be able to give that financial support for their family to thrive and to grow in their communities. And there are other young people who are also going in labor mobility to be able to fund their wives, their kids to go for further studies. So when they come back into the country, they can contribute to the resiliency of our people. So the roles of the young generation right now, we are doing our part in being able to contribute through that resiliency and advocacy of climate change through all these other necessary opportunities that we're getting right now.